Welcome to today's first lecture. Nice bit of synergy in a way, I suppose, because we started the Academy with Richie Houghton, and today I'm joined by a guy who once said he's my favorite DJ ever, Seth Troxler.
That's me. Hello, how are you guys doing? Full circle.
The circle is completed.
Like a dark malt. What's the Star Wars?
I don't have...
Lost for words.
Good start. You just came in from Detroit.
Yeah, I just came in from Detroit.
You were at the Movement Festival.
We're at the Movement Festival.
And you throw a party every Movement Festival. A party not at the festival proper, but outside, called Need I Say More?
Yeah, I'm actually originally from Detroit. I live now in Europe, and I just kind of on airplanes and hotels. But for years before I kind of started my career, now I have and if you guys don't know me, my name's Seth Troxler. I'm a DJ. I have a record label named Visionquest. I also kind of make records on occasion, but kind of recently have been more known for voiceover work, kind of like being an actor that was once great and now you're only Garfield. But so I do that. But years ago, when I was living in Detroit, Ryan Crosson and some other partners of mine who had this label Visionquest, we were promoters, and it's kind of funny. There's this guy back here, Will Calcutt, used to go out, and there was a kind of like local scene stuff, and we had this party. Actually, another person here, Wendy. Little did you know that some of the people here that work here actually used to be really fun, and they would go to these. We threw this party outside every Monday at this club called it's not this club, it's a veterans bar.
Definitely not a club.
It's a really kitschy veterans bar called the Old Miami, kind of like the closing Monday of the festival. And we had Mr. Gur Jensen, who was one of the main guys here, was DJing with Ben UFO, and we also had Tale of Us and Soul Clap. So it was a great weekend. The first time of rain, but... Oh, excuse me. I had a little too much Red Bull. That berry stuff really, it's like pancakes in your mouth. Caffeinated pancakes. So yeah, it was a great weekend. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing to see all the people out, and just to see the crowd at the DMF this year had become a lot more mature. It was brilliant. I mean, it seems like there's been a real divergence in the people who are going to kind of real niche festivals that are musically curated to that, or kind of, I mean, a couple weeks ago I was here in New York playing at EDC, and the crowds were so completely different, and I mean, I guess at one stage at that point here, playing on the control stage with Richie Houghton, we're kind of exposing people from that stuff. From the other side, and then we're in Detroit. It's like everyone was, just like us. I mean,
it must be quite interesting to see some electronic music blowing up in a way, because when you were growing up in Detroit, you'd moved there from Kalamazoo early on. That was totally a niche thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe like a lot of the participants here, I don't know where all you guys are from, but growing up in Detroit, which has this very rich history, we actually had a very small musical scene. It was kind of funny. At the time when I was growing up, I was in high school. I was playing music. I was working at this record store called Melodies and Memories. Terrence Parker and Theo Parrish used to work there, and it's a fantastic music store. And funny enough, this guy said earlier, Will, he was in college with Matthew Deere, and Matthew Deere went to the same school as me. And we're on this like a kind of ending generation of Detroit, from like Magda and Richie Houghton. These guys had just started coming back, or Magda was still in Detroit before she moved to New York and then to Berlin. But overall, the whole entire scene was about 250 people. So, and this is Detroit, like classic Detroit, and all the scene that was combined was like some college kids and some old DJs, and then the whole time coming up at that time, I mean, electronic music was in a bit of a lull. So also being there was kind of you had no view of the outside world. You thought like, hey, we collect records, we're all really into this music, but there's nothing outside of just being a kind of a local DJ and maybe playing, before some out-of-town headliners, until at some point I was a junior in high school, I think.
Sorry, but you're a junior in high school and you're thinking, boy, we'll never get to Europe. You were quite young.
Yeah, I was quite young, but also, it wasn't until later that I even realized that it's still many people in that city are in that mentality, and also with electronic music, I didn't really realize how big the European market was because we were never exposed to that. If you're coming from, like, let's say a small place, I know our friend here is from Istanbul, or let's say you're coming from somewhere in Venezuela, and then, things there may seem very local and small, but one of the biggest things you have to start thinking and looking at is the global community that your genre of music may sit inside. And it wasn't until I had gone to Sonar, which actually it's funny enough I'm closing this year, again full circle, but I went to Sonar with Matt Deere and Will back here, funny enough, and I'm like 17, 18, and I'm outside, I'm like lost, I'm going to India with my family and just had a chance to stop off there, and this guy I know who actually went to the same high school as me, his wife's little sister's locker is next to mine, I go, and then I just know him from like local bars or coming to play with them at this night they did in Ann Arbor when he was in school, to being on a stage and there's 10,000 people and he's playing after Richie Houghton and Ricardo Villalobos, and it wasn't until then that my mind was like, boom, whoa, this is real. Like, this can be real. And everyone here who's been accepted into this program, I hope this experience is putting that in your mind that this can be real. You've already taken those steps. I know when I was younger, also around the same time, I really wanted to come to this program. I'd like tried to sign up. I did the paperwork, and I was too young. And then I was old enough, and then it came to America, and then I wasn't old enough again. And then I just kind of started university, and I was doing parties and making music, and just kind of got on with it and gave up on the dream and kind of on this dream.
On this dream,
and was like, whatever, I'm just going to do it myself and persevere to do everything. That's one thing about possibly this career. I'm sorry I'm having such a long-winded speech, but some of this stuff is a bit important, and I'm just trying to make you guys realize that things are possible. And one thing that is really important for everyone to know, if you want this career and if you want this to be your life, you have to give up almost everything for it to be your life. It has to be an absolute. There is no half-stepping, like, oh, I'm going to have this little side job now, and I'm going to be comfortable with that, or like kind of like I'm trying to keep certain parts of your normality in life to kind of keep that dream or to really excel in it. You have to go full 100,000,000%, or else you won't make it. There is no time for half-stepping. And even later in life, let's say once you start to become a little bit more successful, a D-list celebrity like myself, then you really start to get to this point where, I'm on the road maybe 5-6 days a week and giving up some of your old past life. It's good to know exactly what's in store or what can possibly be in store for you. One of my good friends, Benoit and Sergio, this guy Ben, just like this kind of group, they have there on my label, and also in Diva Faye. And he used to be a professor at Johns Hopkins, and now he goes and sings pop songs at raves. But he once told me, he's like, one of the funniest things is when your dreams come true, at some point it can become your greatest nightmare, because it's like you change life. Your dream becomes something new, something that you never imagined. And that's something that you guys should really think about. Like, what life do you want to live? What is the goal of kind of being invested in this, and really get to the brass tacks of it. Not the fame, not money or anything. That stuff doesn't really happen anyway. You get some cash here and there, you can survive. But what's your real goal, the real point of doing what you're doing, And really think about that a lot.
Was there a moment in which you consciously made that decision, or was it just, I'm working in a record store, here's the next step, we're throwing parties, blah.
We did make that moment, the very conscious decision. It was I was just finishing university, and Visionquest, that's the record label I have. There's 4 of us. It's my friend Ryan Crosson, Shaun Reeves, and Lee Curtis. And Shaun had already moved to Europe. He was the first one to go. And then Ryan was working for his father. They had a company that they bought and sold used machinery. He used to drive around America and buy kind of industrial machinery from companies. And Lee was a used car salesman, and I was in university studying graphic design. So at some point we had been going over to Berlin every summer, for years, and playing over there and kind of bringing back ideas and doing things. And then at one point we said, hey, you know what? Let's do it. Let's like fuck it, let's drop everything and let's do it. So we planned for that next summer that we were going to move. So we got up all of our stuff and we're like, what's the worst that can happen? We moved back to Detroit. So we moved to Berlin, like as you did at that time. And I met you then, and we're just some young kids with a dream trying to make it happen, you know? And kind of jumped in. I mean, the time in Berlin then was a lot different. You know, this is like 2006, 2007. I think 2007 was the year that we first came over. Yeah, because I've been here for almost 7 years. So yeah, I've been living in Europe for about 7 years. So that was all happening, and yeah, we just dove in. You know, Lee, he lasted a couple months, went back. It was kind of crazy. We lived. Our friend Shaun, it was at that time, Gadi Mizrahi was there for that summer, who's Wolf and Lamb. Lee, Ryan, and I sleeping on a futon together in Shaun's living room, like kind of, you know, and there's some point when you're broke and you're like, and your best friend wakes up with his arm around you, you know, a couple too many times, and you're just like, oh, you're eating donors every day. But we had a dream, you know, that was kind of, it's like, this is what I have to do till I can kind of make it and to get something that's working, you know. Luckily, we didn't have to do that for too long, but it was, you know, a couple months, you know, trying to find a place or just get some money together to kind of do something and make it happen. But that's the kind of things you have to go through, you know, to really get there, to get to the point, you know.
I want to go back a little bit to Detroit, your time there. You said you were working in a record store at very early age.
Yeah,
Why was that the first job that you wanted?
Well, actually, it's kind of funny enough how I got the job. I was just there the other day with Ben UFO, and I took him into the old record store, and it's actually one of the greatest record stores in America. It's incredible. We have the biggest 45 collection. And I was just a kid who was coming in. I was a dork, you know. I didn't get these social skills until later in life. But so I was really like introverted, like record kid. My parents were into house music, so I've been listening to dance music since I was about 8. My dad had a radio show when I was younger. And so, yeah, I was just this kid. I would come in every weekend, with my little cash, whatever I could scrape up and buy records every single week. And that's all I thought about on the internet, like on message boards. Like,
what kind of records?
At the time, it was kind of the same music I play now, which is really funny. And actually, Deeper House, my first record was on Omar S.'s label under this FXHE, under the name Young Seth. So I was into really deep kind of like house. And then after kind of going to raves in Detroit at that time, and the people I was involved with Magda and Matt Dare and these other people, getting more into the minimal scene, there was a party at that time called Untitled that was really the last decadent period in underground Detroit dance music. So, but that kind of brought me more into minimalism. So when Perlone, this record label of Zip, Demi Man, and like also famed for like some of the early Ricardo Villalobos labels, releases was just happening. It was in its infancy. And but at the time, I was just going to this record store every weekend, and the guy Gary, my old boss, was telling Ben and I, he's like, yeah, it's really funny. This guy would come in all the time with his godfather, and he'd buy these records, and just by my taste alone and the fact that they had lost the techno buyer, and like I was this geek, he's like, so you want to work here? He's like, you're really nice. You know, he said he's a cute. I was a nice kid who spent money, so like had good taste. So for him, it was perfect. And I got this job working 3 days a week. You know, I'd work Thursday when records came in, and then on the weekends, and just selling records to anyone of any genre. You know, like I'd listen to every record that came in and try to listen to every record in the shop when I was just sitting around, just so I could know what, you know, because even though you may not like some music or other music, you still know if it's good or bad within that genre. You know, so I wanted people to come in. I hate going to a record store and you go in and people, you know, they get like this like arrogant record store guy who's like, oh, you know, it's kind of funny, like at Hardwax, which is funny enough. You know, I've been going to Hardwax for years. It's this old famed record store in Berlin, and the guys know me there. No matter what, they know what I play. You know, they know me. No matter what, they pull me this stuff, and they're like, yeah, why'd you just spend all that time pulling these records that you know I will not buy? You know? And it's like, you should go to a store, and there should be some type of connection where someone just picks you records that are good for you, you know, and good for whatever you're saying. But I'm kind of diverging into something else. I don't know.
You mentioned Perlone, and obviously you were listening to all the records, but I feel like that record label you've talked about before is particularly important to you in a way?
It's been the hugest influence, I think, on my musical direction in life. I don't know if anyone here knows the label, or I mean, there seems like a lot of different people here from different backgrounds, but I kind of find that as far as electronic music goes, or abstract electronic music, it's almost the blue note of our time. You know, they did a lot of concept and released a lot of music that was so ahead of its time, and still is, using micro sampling, using kind of like old dub influences, bridging some gaps between what is minimalism house and is also kind of experimental music, you know? And that at that time, especially when they were starting, the ideas were so new. And, you know, when you're young, these new ideas are happening. It's really like, wow, I can't believe this is true. And also coming from Detroit, having some kind of faceless, I mean, again, not knowing kind of the DJ culture and everything that's going on that kind of made people big, but just having these faceless art German labels, you know, when you're like 16 and everyone's listening to hip hop and you're into like these weird kind of German people who you don't know, and they're just like, this is incredible. I remember there's this record cover on Playhouse for one of my favorite songs ever, Warriors. But this guy Losel, you know, and it was like this, "Where do I belong?" was like kind of the lyrics, and it had all these pictures from this old famous club, Robert Johnson, with him and Atta and all these people like Roman Fugal and stuff. And I just remember looking every day on my bed at these pictures and these people and kind of coming up with these huge fantasies of what was actually happening. You know, it was like a small 300-person club and it's them and their friends. But to me, it was like this huge idea, you know, it was this huge dream. You know, wow, these guys in Frankfurt, they're so crazy and German.
It's amazing because I think for a lot of people overseas, the perception about Detroit was the same way.
Exactly. It's funny you say that because it's like a lot of, I mean, when I was bringing Gerd over the weekend, or Ben, you know, for them, just to be in Detroit was like this big, like, wow, it was like this epiphany, because for their whole lives they had kind of always looked up to the musicianship of the city, you know, whether it be in techno or hip hop or, you know, or whatever. So, I mean, there's a lot of Dilla fans all over. And the record store I used to work at was the same record store, House Shoes, who was like one of the main kind of DJs who kind of represented that music from Detroit, worked at forever. And they're like, well, can't believe all this stuff happened here. And for us, it was like, I mean, growing up in that situation, you don't really realize until you're gone how much of effect it has on you or it's had on the world, much like them in Europe, you know, like Gerd's from Frankfurt. He's like, yeah, whatever. It's like Robert Johnson. He's the main resident. But for me, actually, one of the first gigs I played in Europe, I was 18. I went with Omar S and played at Robert Johnson in Panorama Bar for him.
Did it live up to the fantasies?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny. I was really nervous, and I had dreads, and Omar gave me this really big T-shirt. I wear kind of not big T-shirts, and I had this over large T-shirt I ended up giving to one of his friends. That was like 3 times my size. But yeah, it's funny how all that kind of works out, you know? It's funny when you're sometimes as well, let's say if you're in the middle of a movement or something happening, you know, let's say with you and your friends, right now you may not realize it, but maybe a few people in this room may have a connection today where in 30 years, it's like Brian Eno meeting someone else, you know, and it's like that was the spark, you know, that was the period, that's when it happened. And then that's stuff that you have to keep in your mind and like kind of think in the long term as well. You know, you don't realize it until later, but it's kind of funny how all these things, all these experiences that you're having now will actually have a huge effect later in your life or kind of your, you know.
You went on tour with Omar, who you said put out your first record. Yeah. Did you meet him at the record store?
I met him at the record store. You know, it's kind of funny. I've just gone back to playing records only, and there's something really important about I think the communication that happens at a record store, and record stores being cultural places, you know, that's something you don't get online. You know, buying records, being at the store, talking to people who come into the store, talking to the store clerk, meeting connections to other people who are into music at the store. I mean, I met Ryan Crosson, my partner, who's been my number one. We've done everything together, businesses, everything. And he was the first customer in the record store the first day I worked. You know, so there's like these small coincidences. Like there'll be a lot of coincidences in your lives that are actually a lot more than coincidences. I think in many ways they're fate that you shouldn't overlook. You know, a lot of small meetings that become quite large down the line. You know, it's kind of funny that you at the time it's just like, okay, I met this guy, but life puts the right points in front of you, and it's your it's up to you to grab those grab those moments and grab those kind of connections and those kind of meetings, and then those are the meetings that take you on later in life. So like be open to everything, and when you're meeting people, it could be, a guy you're sitting, it's super funny, a guy you may be sitting next to and to say hello to, maybe your kind of future partner or maybe the love of your life or whatever, everything is kind of intertwined in a way, and it's something you have to really realize early. And then when it happens, and the more you start to realize these things, the more when things happen, you're like, you know what, I will call you back, or thanks for this card, let's have a beer or something, being polite and nice, be nice to everyone. Huge point. Don't be a dick. Straight up. Because like a lot of music is almost like a country club. Word gets out fast if someone's an asshole, and it's like, yeah, that guy's cool, but Dunskies. You're like, we ain't featuring him no more. And it's straight up like that. If someone's got really arrogant or anything, it's kind of funny with arrogance or whatever, or like kind of when people who are just starting to do things, let's say in music, and you get like your first little single comes out, you get a nice review, cats be like, oh yeah, and then start acting funny, and it's like, yo, and then the more success you get, the more you kind of realize it doesn't matter, and just be normal, and at some point you just want to go back to being normal. I mean, that's kind of one thing with our party we do in Detroit. It's the one time a year where I get to throw a party, I work the door, and I'm just a normal guy again, and you got to keep that as long as you can, as being an artist or being a producer or whatever, just to be kind to people, be open for things, and don't bust people's balls for nothing, or kind of position yourself in different ways, because everyone really is equal, no matter how great of an artist you are. And you find that people who are the best artists and the biggest artists are also the most humble. So keep that to yourself. That's a good one. That helps a lot.
Why don't we play a record really quick? This is not your first one, but kind of early on. Just play a snippet of it.
This is a record that was on the label here. Oh, Wolf and Lamb. Oh, sorry. There's a label here from Wolf and Lamb. It was like my third record, I think. Tribute to my grandma.
When I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally.
Cool, like later on. Hello? Yeah, later on, like some Young stuff comes in, and it was kind of funny. There was a guy back here, and kind of what Venezuelan kid back here. He was making. Oh, hello.
You're all good.
Okay. Yeah, there's Is it a song?
What's that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's this Venezuelan guy back here we were talking earlier, and I think a lot of music, if you're mixing, and I mean it's kind of hard to judge by that snippet. You just got like a beat, but progression of your tracks is huge. I mean, when I have a record label, I'm actually about to have 3 record labels, and when we're signing tracks, like musical progression and also simplicity of a song is something that you start to recognize a lot more and more. Don't throw loads of stuff in your tracks just to throw loads of stuff in your tracks, tricks in that, or kind of, it just, as long as it flows and kind of works, that's the tracks that normally kind of sell the best and also become kind of the best songs in your own discography.
That particular track, there's this one moment in there that it's like a glitch almost in it. And I was really kind of interested in why you left that in. I
think mistakes are cool, whether you're DJing or whatever. Perfection, no one really likes perfection in any part of life, I find, whether it's like you meet someone and there's like they got a funny teeth, you're like, ooh, that's cute. You're like, what's up? Or like, that kind of search for perfection is kind of pointless. I think in music as well, if things are overproduced, it just doesn't sound human. You miss that realness, and it's kind of funny. That's always been a difference between my production style and my best friend Ryan. He tools and tools and tools over stuff forever, and there at some point you lose some of the essence. I'd rather just being like, yo, that's good, fuck it, let's roll. That's like, I think that's kind of cool about music at times. You can just have a tune and also make, just don't be sloppy, but a little sloppiness, a little like mess up a off rhythm here or there is kind of what keeps things original in a way, And I think when you're listening to music or hearing music, and right now, with the digital age, a lot of people are going back to like older production techniques that are more human, and kind of perfection's a bit over. That perfection was last season. I like polka dots now.
Your record label, Visionquest, that you run with Ryan, Shaun, and Lee. One of the things about it is that you pay a lot of attention to the art and the branding of it, I suppose, is the maybe dirty word for it.
Actually, I come from marketing, so I don't... Excuse me. I'm dying. No, but it's kind of funny that you say art and branding because, I pay attention, extreme attention to detail. And one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, this is like some realness, like that what goes along with being polite is being extremely mindful of your personal brand. And your person, like who you are, and building a personal brand, whether or just kind of like an image of who you are as an artist, or like as a studio producer, or mainly an artist. It works. I don't know. Behind the scenes, you don't really need to build that personal brand so much.
How do you do that without like appearing as though you're building a personal brand?
It's kind of funny. That's what I've made a career out of, in a way. But it's just being mindful of how everything is, how everything looks, how especially with the digital age today and kind of Facebook, MySpace, all this stuff, it's about putting out something where people can look at you, can look to your music, or can kind of date back, but it's always there. It will always be in public. It's like forever. Now with the internet, it's forever stamped, and the earlier you kind of build a kind of image for yourself, whether it's like really tongue-in-cheek, whether it's just yourself or just kind of what people know you for, the more that your kind of fan base becomes familiar with that. And for me, in many ways, it's a way to distance yourself from your real self and kind of your artistry, because it's kind of at times, the more you get in, it's hard for those two things to come together, And
so, would you say Seth Troxler, the artist, is much different than Seth Troxler?
It's not so much different. That's the way. That's how you keep it real. But also, it is a bit played up. It's still, at the end of the day, it's entertainment. So when you're creating these images of these people, you have to be a bit more outgoing. No one really wants a really super introverted, kind of dark. I wear my jacket at night with my mother type vibes. I don't know. It's trying to come up with something really, really Norman Bates. I don't know what's going on there. We were talking about that earlier.
But it's interesting, like Richie Houghton, Plastic Man. Yeah, that's a dark, introverted character.
But also with Rich, one thing about that character is, I don't know if you guys know who Richie Houghton is, but there's few people in this industry who are on top of every single point of everything. It's that meticulous nature of what you're trying to create. Who is the character or the general art concept? Being conceptual is everything. That's kind of more the point with kind of personal brand building. If you look at labels like Ghostly or like Minus, there's a huge, deep concept behind that. Even Visionquest, there's a concept behind things, and I think our label would be even bigger if we would have been more precise with the art direction, And the earlier you can lock into that art direction of either your artist or your label and create a clear, precise vision of what that is, then I think the more success you'll have in either field. Just being precise and being on top and involved with every single decision, and like, boom, no, it's like this. Create a vision, create, not just like, okay, I'm making music because it's cool. If you're gonna go for it, you like go for it. One person that's really great is, and this is an example, but Lady Gaga, she is so precise. I know some people who kind of know her and work with her, or like Daft Punk. So Daft Punk's a great, because they're so big right now. They're so precise behind every decisions that they've made. The music's always been okay, but the success kind of breaks down to their personal brand building and their personal image, you know? At some point, they're like, hey, we're going to ditch just being two geeky French guys, put on these masks, and create a whole fantasy. Because, I mean, in some ways, my own personal success has been behind the fantasy that people kind of believe that I may be. You know, I'm like this really, I can be a loose guy, but I'm also kind of like a very, you know, kind of an organized, precise person. But by people, in some ways, living out their own fantasies through your music or through your person as a character or through your labels kind of vision, and then being able to identify their own selves through that kind of brand, you know? Like, okay, I like Ghost, like when I was a kid, you know, like let's say Ghostly, all right? Ghostly, Spectral. They've done an amazing job with kind of linking like alternative, young art student kids, you know, or college kids to their brand, you know? So it's like you identify yourself like, I listen to this music because it's the kind of person I want to be, the kind of clothes that I wear from every single point down, you know, and that's really important. That's how the world works, and this is a truth, you know. And with artists, you know, let's say this kid right here, he kind of looks like someone who likes minimal techno or industrial, you know, but he doesn't.
You need to hear his music.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, if you look at people like I'd say go back to Richie Houghton, a lot of the people who go with that brand or that music, they had created a perfect imagery where everyone going to those parties kind of felt like they were inclusive into that idea, into that kind of style of living, you know, and that's important.
One of the things that you've tried to do, and kind of in the style of Rich's lineage of throwing parties and building spaces, is these Visionquest parties. One of the biggest ones you did was at DC-10 last year in Ibiza. Yeah. Can you talk about what you did to the space and why it was so important to you to transform it?
It's Red Bull. So, no. So right now, I'm doing a project called Visionquest 13. Visionquest is the label that we have, and we're doing 13 events. So coming into this, I was thinking, I was like, okay, what hasn't changed in our music or kind of our events? You know, basically in dance music, events have been in the same space or the same format for 30 years. Nothing's really changed. You're in a dark club. And then I was like, okay, musically things have changed, but I mean, I'm not like crazy musical innovator. I know in my heart I'm not going to make the best album ever that's going to change the world. And that's just not going to happen. So it's like, how else can we produce change? So we thought like, okay, the best idea that I came up with, like, okay, the environment of clubbing or club culture hasn't changed. So I thought back like experiences I had in my life, and I was like, well, the experiences that did affect me the most in my life, you know, that changed my life really, were the experiences where both the environment was almost one-off, when the environment and the music together, but the environment had changed, you know, for that one specific time, only that once could you experience. So it was like, and also there's some things going on with immersive theater in London, like You Me Bum Bum Trader. There's a group here, Sleep No More, where you go to these warehouses and you're kind of in this pop-up environment space. So pop-up, we're like, okay, let's make pop-up environments, a one-off event where you can go into this entire kind of living environment, experiences these things, and then only for that one night would they be there. So last year at the DC-10, we did the DC-10 for a decade. It's always just been this outside and inside and two inside spaces, and that's it, you know. Like sometimes they put a stage up, but it's never actually changed. It's always exactly the same. So to add effect, we like made the whole outside and like almost carnival-y. There was like these teepees everywhere you could go into, and huge balloons away, like oil lamps, like a real spectacle, you know. Then you go inside, and it was like this kind of Twin Peaks type situation with like kind of red curtains everywhere, and it was like kind of draping, you know. And then it went to the back room that's normally the huge terrace, and it was like this kind of maze that you had to go through, and there's these boxes where you could kind of relax in. They were made of triangles, and there's huge fog everywhere, and like velvet and stuff, and you could go do all these things. There's a telephone in a corner with a light on it, very Lynchian, you know, that you could pick up, and then on the other line there's another phone outside in the garden that had other people on it. It was like trying to create experiences, you know. And so at the back of that, we're like, wow, we should do some more of these. So then this year, we took 13 gigs around the world and found spaces that were like that. Or we tried to do one at Fabric, or we did one at Warehouse Project, a big party in Manchester the other week, and tried to take spaces right now that were very normal, or like people had been going to. Warehouse Project's been open for how many years? No one's ever changed it, and you can make a huge impact by doing small things, small things. And let's say if you're a promoter, that's also another huge point. If you're making music or kind of trying to start something, is getting involved in your local scene. Like my man here from Turkey, throwing events, making kind of your own culture happen. That's a big way how we became successful, is kind of creating our own. No one's going to give it to you. There's enough cake for everybody, but you got to go get your cake. You got to get that cake on your own. You got to you don't got to hoard the cake. You gotta be like, yo, I'm gonna bake my own cake, and then when I want to give somebody else some cake, they can have some cake. It's my cake, But you made that cake. You made that piece of the pie for yourself. You've created that niche, And creating that niche is something that is always yours, And that's something that can be really strong. So that's something that we're trying to capitalize right on. I'm gonna have to cut somebody if they come in here steal my ideas. But creating something new, and we want to start creating immersive environment events, because that's something that's not really happening yet. And being from marketing, one of the biggest kind of things is the law of first. If you're the first person to do something, Coca-Cola was the first Coca-Cola company. The first Cola company. Forever they'll be number one because they were the first. You look at Kellogg's for cereal. You're ever number one. It doesn't work like this in all industries, but in most, like Red Bull, first energy drink. Leaps and bounds ahead of every other competition. So if you can come into something and be the first to do that, and really push out, like, yo, boom, I hit it first. As Kendrick Lamar or whatever that dude is saying. It's like people are like, yo, that dude, you did hit it first. And people remember that, So that's like an important thing to do, whether it is throwing events, making music, coming up with ideas first, and then really putting down your plot. Like, that's your personal brand. This is our brand idea. This is what we stand for. It's important.
Speaking of first, you were voted the #1 DJ by the resident advisor readers last year. Yeah. How has things changed since then?
It's kind of funny, like, this is back to the kind of thing, like your biggest dream may become your worst nightmare. Success is a funny thing. It's something that you strive for, and then once you have, it becomes a burden more than anything else, So it's been cool, but it's also been a bit funny. The 2 previous years I was number 3, then number 2, then number 1. But before that, when you're number 3 and you're number 2, it's like you can just do your thing, and it's like people come to your parties and you're cool, and they're like, oh, they're not number. But as soon as you become number 1, people start gunning for you, and it's like this.
Who's gunning for you?
I don't know, but it just seems different. Like cats are like, it's just weird, and then. And also people start going to your events or, your parties knowing nothing really about you. Just the fact that you're like, quote unquote, number 1. And that's uncomfortable. That's one thing where that's the wrong side of the hype train that you want to be on. If you can live in this world that's kind of in between and doing your thing and whatever, it's cool. It's also depending on what you want to go for. Jamie Jones and I don't know if you guys know this, he's another electronic music artist. At some point, we were last year he was number 1, and I was number 2, but we were also on the same agency and doing a lot of stuff together. We'd play together all the time. And then after that year, I broke off to leave to William Morris, a different booking agency, and he stayed with his crew. And also he's kind of trying to go down a bit of a pop route where I've kind of turn, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go back underground. It's just more comfortable for me. And it's making that choice of where you want to be and what you want to do. What, like if you want to be an underground artist or an overground artist, And, he's always kind of looked at this level of success, and he's kind of more comfortable with it. Where for me, it's kind of uncomfortable. And that's a big point, is finding what you want to do with this whole thing, where you want to go. Like I know at 15, I had a point in my mind. But almost this point, I was like, that's where I'm going to go by this age. Define what you're going to do. Like, be like, for real, this is it. I'm going to eat, live, die, do whatever I can to get there besides being a dick. Like whatever I can do, I'm gonna get there by all means possible, because that's why I'm here to do this. This is what I've put my life into, and you give everything to reach that level, and that's it, that's kind of what's up.
You said you want to go underground in general terms, but specifically, what do you mean by that?
Like going back underground, at some point, it was kind of funny trying to reach number one or whatever. I was engaged.
Was that a goal? A specific goal in your mind?
At some point, it did become a goal, because I did number 3, number 2, and I was just like, actually, at the last year, before I got to number 1, I was like, maybe we could try to do something to stay at number 2, because I didn't want the pressure. I was like, how can we lose, but just by a bit, and but in the back of your mind, it becomes a thing, There's something about being an artist of this kind of narcissism, what kind of feeds you, but you can't let out, which is kind of funny. It's being completely comfortable with being uncomfortable, and it being, kind of, I don't know, I heard this great thing from Deepak Chopra, but I forgot the quote, so I'm not going to, I always say that, but he was saying something about really talented people. He's like, they are comfortable with knowing that they are uncomfortable, or uneasy around people, or kind of, that, it's a weird thing, but there's definitely this tick I find with successful people that's different. There's a drive, that all the people I know in any type of business that are really successful have this same kind of, not narcissism, but the same thing that it makes it work, and it gives them that extra drive level, believing in yourself a lot, but not believing in yourself, which is makes no sense, but it really does work. It's like, oh God, this is another great quote. It's about New Order. I read an MMA. They had this big piece on them, and they're saying at the time when New Order was really happening, the journals had never met somebody who was so shy yet so confident. So that's pretty huge, of kind of being really in the back, but knowing boom, it's happening. This is legit, but not being outspoken yo, I'm the best, this is the best, Dylon, hot fire, that's not cool, but being in your mind, humble and kind of reserved. Many of the artists that you've kind of seen through here have all been really cool. I know Kieran Fortet's been in here, and Matt Johnson, and they're all really kind of humble, nice guys, but still forever have known they're kind of some of the best in the industry, Again, trailing off. And
No, it's fine. Why don't we play another track, because I want to use it as a jumping off point for to talk about partying.
Let's talk about some things.
Hello. There's a voiceover on that track. Obviously, is that you?
Yeah, that's me. No, it's kind of funny.
You're talking about every time someone wants something, or every time you come to me, you want something.
We're just talking about kind of scene shit, or the kind of this party bullshit, I guess.
The track is called Party Guilt.
Yeah, which sometimes you get as well if you go out too long. You're like, oh, I feel like, why did I do this? What am I doing with my life? That is something that may come to all of you as well. This kind of big doubt phase, like, what am I doing with my life? Which you have to overcome, I guess. But
have you overcome it?
No, you never really quite do, which is funny enough. I mean, even like, I'm doing well and everything, but even there's many times, my tour manager over here can attest to that, where I'm like, after a gig, maybe a huge show, but I wasn't really into the crowd or the people and stuff. And like, you're kind of in this thing, like I said, I'm trying to go back underground, the other weekend when I played at EDC and I'm playing for these kids and stuff. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? There's like 3,000 people in front of you, but you're still, I'm never satisfied, And this track was talking about, at the time, I was living in Berlin. I like to go out to party. I like to hang out and have a good time. But there's the thing within scenes where you kind of meet scene people, and every scene is like that, and they just start asking you for things, or, they just talk about parties or talk about everything else. And it's important to have, more so this is more than anything, it's important to have a real life, or try to keep a real life. Even though I say dedicate everything in your life to this, it's also pretty good to have a little. How
do you get that balance?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. Really, stick with some of your crew, like stick with some of your friends. All the people around me have been around me for over a decade, basically. All my friends, even my girlfriend, I've known for like 7-8 years. So the more you can kind of keep of your old life, but it's a funny thing, because you have to at some point ditch your life to become successful, but it's also some points you want to keep from that to kind of keep you grounded. So it's up to everyone, but it's hard. Like, living your dream or being a musician, and especially being a traveling musician, is something, if you want to do it, it's really extremely difficult. It's a life that's not for everyone, and knowing that that's not that it's going to be like that, or it can be like that, is like a good way for you to judge how you want to use your skills and your talents. If you want to stay in one city, maybe trying to go out to be like in a huge band or something isn't the best of ideas, or like if you're like, pretty homey. I mean, even one of the guys from Visionquest, Lee, he doesn't like touring. He doesn't like going out on the road. He likes sitting at home and drinking beer and barbecuing and chilling in the studio. He's made that choice, and that's how his kind of career panned out. Where I live for the road. I mean, I don't live for it, but it's just something I've become accustomed to.
So does everyone in Visionquest sort of have a different kind of function in a way? Like, Lee is this guy who likes the studio. You like to go out and DJ all the time. Yeah, I mean, we all have different roles. I mean, a lot of the label and everything is run by Ryan and I. We come up with a lot of the concepts. I'm kind of like a conceptual guy. Ryan, is a business major, so he does a lot of the accounting and other stuff, Coming up with a crew or a business behind you is really important as well. If you're going to do something, having a team. I mean, I have maybe now at this point in my life, including the label and just my management team and everything, about 9-10 people who work with us, around us. That's even a small number. So, what was the moment at which you said, I need a manager?
Actually, the moment I realized that, kind of funny, I was kind of original manager over here, my friend Mike, is just like, he was my agent, and then someone who just helped me along with things. But then when it kind of technically, I got like a manager is when I switched to a larger agency, William Morris. It's like kind of one of the bigger talent agencies in the world. And to work with them, you have to have a manager, But let's say if you're like a rapper or like a pop person, it's important to have that team out there representing you and making deals that you actually don't have the time to do, and it just comes down to time management.
How did you choose them? Because I think obviously having a manager, time management, but trusting them enough to make those decisions.
I've always worked with friends. Go on impressions, go on first and second impressions. Work with people that you actually trust. I mean, some of the best decisions I've ever made in my life have been not on paper the best decisions. But they've been decisions that were good in my heart. And, not the best decisions on paper, but like, let's say it's a couple big labels have approached me, or big agencies, and they're like, come with us, let's do this. And we were like, You know, I got my guys over here, and we looked at how everything played out, and it wasn't the best for you. Even though on paper it's like, this looks money, this like could be good, I'm about to join these hype people or whatever. It may actually not be, and that's actually kind of ruined a lot of people, you know, who took that decision, and I went the other way, and then at the end I was like, happy I went the other way. Happy I took my own route. Going your own way and making your own thing is everything. It goes back to the cake thing, you know? Like, why try to get somebody else's cake when they kind of can give you some cake when they want to, when you can go make your own thing? Stay close to those other people, you know, be polite. Always keep a working relationship with them, or like a polite openness in case, you know, you guys do collaborate later. And it's cool, and that's one thing I've found with all those people who once offered me work or kind of wanted me to come with their crew, and I was like, nah, dude, I'm straight. They still will work with you because they still want something from you. They still want to be involved with you. However, taking that step back and be like, yo, we can be involved together, but I need to be kind of in control of my own stuff. They respect that at the end. At the moment, a lot of those bigger artists or kind of agencies are, they're like, fuck this guy. I can't believe he just said that, or kind of let us on. But then at the end of the day, we've always kind of stayed in contact, and they've been like, hey, would you come do this for us, or you do this? Or, you know, so you still get to do those events or kind of work with those artists, but, you know, you're still in control of your own destiny.
No, and I think the point that you say of them respecting your decision to control your own thing is an important one.
It's all about doing everything. Any business decision you make can be looked back at, you know? And like I said earlier about the country club thing, you know, like, it's about doing things respectfully the entire time you take the step into this business to the point you take the step out, is doing things the right way. You know, with the right intentions. You know, don't screw up your old friends or your old business partners, because that may, you know, a couple years on the hot. Oh, Jesus. Sorry. A couple years on the line, those decisions are things that, like, may really come back to bite you. You know, when you treat everyone with respect, do everything the right way. You know, like, if you leave an agency, do it the right way. You know, be like, hey, thank you. You know, this is a proper way to do things. You know, just never be wrong.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. I think that's the biggest thing. Do not be a dick. Like, seriously, it's really important. And it's easy. You get wrapped up in stuff. You're like, yeah, this is cool. I mean, a couple times I've started to be a dick, and people are like, yo, you're being a dick. And I was like, maybe you're right. But having the, yeah, really. But having the kind of comfort in yourself to realize that, and when people give you kind of suggestions, people that you trust, and to kind of like be like, take that, you know, and not having the ego and having a low ego to kind of accept those ideas, and that's really what kind of makes you and takes you to the next level as an artist or whatever you want to do, as being humble and taking advice from people, good and bad, but just take that advice. So listen when people talk to you, especially when people who have been working in things for a long time and who you kind of respect tell you something, then it's like, maybe dude's right, you know? Like, you know, you can do it all on your own, and you should, you know, make your own kind of eyes and visions about things, but take advice from people. Like, a lot of times people want to help you, you know, and don't want to help you for nothing else than just helping you, you know. But also times, I think there's one thing that you got to really know. It's like Tribe Called Quest said, you know, the record industry is shady, you know, so watch your back as well, you know. Look out for contracts, look out for clauses. And this stuff is all, like, really mega important down the line, because loads of people get caught up in deals that, like I said, look good on the paper, and then at the end of the day, it's like, it's not good. You know, you're stuck, and then you're kind of pigeonholed. You know, you can't, and things have happened to, like, let's say, look at Prince or whatever, we had to change his name and stuff. It's about being mindful about everything, you know?
I know earlier you said you're quite eager to take questions from the audience.
Definitely.
You're wanting to give back, so why don't we go ahead and open it up?
Yeah, please, that'd be great. Do you guys need to take this microphone, or we share one?
He can.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't want to talk about myself too long.
Hey there.
How you doing? What's your name, dude?
Alan.
Alan, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, very well. I'm cool.
Good.
Talking a lot.
Too much Red Bull, eh?
Yeah. It's like the first one in like years. But that blueberry jam, I was like, this tastes like some cheap blueberry pancakes. It does, like those, whatever.
Expensive.
Okay, so I actually have a few questions.
Okay.
The first, you mentioned, we talked a lot about like having respect with everybody when you're dealing with contracts, or when you're like
Just
closing
life,
off an
from like the
agency.
doorman to the guy in the
Yeah.
bathroom to the guy throwing the party. Like,
I find it's been quite difficult to say no to people and maintain a good relationship with them afterwards, even if you do it in like the most respectful way. You can you hear things afterwards like they start talking shit about you if you say no to them, or if you decline a proposition, they'll just think you're against them. So like how do you approach like saying no to people?
I mean, that's a funny one, because I've also had that kind of same situation. I mean, it's kind of funny because at some point, like, the people who really talk bad about you when you say no to them and they're propositioning you are often people who, I don't know, in these situations that this has happened, had they been kind of local people or kind of more like high up labels or other things like that?
I don't know. It just seems to happen, not just with me, but like I've seen it happen to a lot of other people as well. Just if you just express that you're not interested, but you respect what they're doing, there's always like.
I mean, just saying that, like, hey, thank you, but no, thank you. I mean, that's, if they can't respect that, then it's not someone you should be working with anyway.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, because there's going to be kind of troubles. It's a bit funny. I've got this. This is really kind of tacky, but it's like later on, it's. And it kind of shows if things are going to be tidy when you're working with someone. Like, if someone can accept that you said no, maybe right now you don't want to work with them, but later on you may come back and be like, hey, actually, let's do something together now. Where I have in my rider, this is really cheesy, I have Pims and one pair of socks. That's all I have. Pims is like this drink you can mix or whatever. And I got this thing out of this, I think it's not Motley Crue, but
it's the blue M&Ms.
The blue
right?
red M&M
Brown
thing.
or
Everyone knows this one. And David Lee Roth had said that when they were doing their shows, they had this thing about 2 red to every blue M&Ms. And it's not about the M&Ms or anything. It's about the fact that when they showed up to those gigs, 500, stadium packing gigs, they realized that when they showed up and there was blue and red M&Ms, then they knew the whole night was going to be sweet, They showed up, there was M&Ms, like, these guys are paying attention to detail, but, not total attention, And then they showed up and there's no M&Ms. They're like, there's going to be problems. It's like me showing up to a gig and there's socks at the beginning. And Pam's, I'm like, yo, cool, things are on point. And 90% of the time, the whole night goes without any issues, because I know these people are paying attention to detail. They're always polite and nice, It's kind of coming down back to this, if people are, finding red flags, I think is the biggest point, If the more red flags you see, if a mouse looks like a mouse eating cheese, he might be a mouse. It's like the more red flags you pick up upon meeting someone or upon your business dealings, notice those and maybe kind of feel them out, take that as kind of maybe this isn't as good as it looks on paper, and that's a big thing, that's really big. So maybe these people are like, yo, I can't believe that. I also don't know how you've said no to these people, but you seem like a really polite guy. So it's just like, hey, they're already tripping on you. Then later on in your working relationship, they'll probably have that same kind of possessiveness, and that's something that you really don't want it as an artist, because it kind of makes you feel trapped, I think, in many ways.
Yeah. Second question. You're on the road quite a bit, and you have a girlfriend. You mentioned.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Yeah, that's like a
Skype.
Maybe
Like lots
you
of
should
Skypes.
ask her.
Yeah,
as well.
how does she handle it? Yeah, actually, it's more on her side. I mean, I had a fiance before this, and this is when I was just kind of shooting for number one in a way, and I was really, really determined on work, and she was a ballerina, and she was really determined on work, and we couldn't find time for each other. And then, you're in a relationship. I gotta say, if you're really working and traveling a lot, having a relationship is a horrible idea. This is bad to say, but it really doesn't work, and it's not. You don't have the time to be attentive to another person. If you can see someone 3 times, 4 times a month, that's not really a relationship. In many ways. I mean, I'm in a situation now where something happened and I'm dating one of my oldest friends, so we're taking the opportunity and working with it. But also, she works in our industry. She does all the logistics for Richie Houghton, so she knows how things work. She's comfortable with that. I mean, if you're trying to have a relationship with someone, it's just generally in life, find someone who's comfortable with you. you know, and knows you and likes you and knows what they're going to get. You know, it's like, hey, at the beginning I was like, this is all I can offer. You know, this is all it's going to be. And this is how it's going to be maybe for another 10 years. Sorry, you know, but they know, you know, and being transparency in anything in your life is really important, you know, and that's, I think, everything. If you're trying to have a relationship, working or physical, you know, transparency is the point. Like, what are we working for? What's going to happen here? What's the future? You know, this is what I can offer. It's like, what are you comfortable with that? Maybe that's as well with the kind of saying no to people, but like, hey, you know, I'd love to, but this is all that I can offer. And then currently at this time, it's not possible, but maybe let's look towards the future and keeping this going, you know? That's a good way to say no. But, like, you know, I say that a lot. I'd love to, but I can't. And have you met Alex, my tour manager? Maybe talk to him a little bit more. I got to go. I've got to go is a good one. I just farted as well. Sorry.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
That transparency.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
See, I farted. I told everyone. Transparent. Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
You're on the road, you said about 5 times a week?
Alex, what are we doing like right now? Like 4 or 5 gigs a week? 4 or 5 a week.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're staying up late. You're probably consuming alcohol or whatever.
On and off, yeah,
Okay.
I get loose, but like other times I don't get loose at all. So it's
Okay.
about the balance.
But
you know?
okay, you're staying up late, and then you have to wake up early to catch a flight with like
Yeah.
a German-infested airplane.
Yeah.
Like, how do you stay healthy? Do you have any like rituals to stay healthy when you're on the road?
Kind of funny. We don't. We eat right. We eat real good. Like I eat constantly, and also I don't know. And as you can tell, but no. I think one of the things is training your body. You know, to fit with your lifestyle. You know, some people go one route where they have to be really healthy. I've kind of just raved since every weekend since I was like 14, so my body's kind of used to it. But one thing...
So you need a decade plus of experience to do it properly.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's kind of funny how your body changes. You know, my body clock now knows on the weekends it's not going to really sleep. So if I'm drinking or partying and do whatever, it's still, even when I'm not doing that, my body knows on that time that it will be up for a long period of time. And it's training your body. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I actually don't get sick that often, which is really incredible.
He says coughing.
Besides this cough that's lasted my whole life. But yeah, I know it's just about finding some balance, you know, and whatever works for you and in any way possible. I mean, touring is extremely hard and it's not for everyone. And that's something that people need to realize because it's easy to break down. It's easy to wear yourself out. Like right now, I even think I'm touring too much and I'm trying to cut it down for the next quarter, for the final quarter of the year. And it's strong. It's very hard. I mean, let's say you play, because a lot of touring people don't really understand. It's like, okay, let's say you play till 5 a.m., 6 a.m. or whatever. You're done, your flight's at 10, 11. Let's say it's 10. You get 6 a.m., you're not going to really get to bed till 7 if you're like good, you know, 7, 8. So then you got 2 hours kind of in bed. Then you got to pack your stuff, go to the airport, you know, and then you fly, transfers, get to the other city. You got a couple more hours. Then you go to a dinner, got an hour before the show, 2 hours before the show, then you're back in, you know? So it's like you have a whole day, and it seems like a lot of time, but it's actually not a lot of time to just relax and lay down. So you got to learn how to sleep on planes and buses and everywhere, every single place you can. And rest when you can, you know, days when you're off, it's like, yo, I'm just going to post up in my room, watch crappy TV, and sleep forever.
So what are your
'Cause it's the day
travel
that I can do that.
essentials? Like, what are the fresh socks?
Fresh socks, yo. Straight up, fresh socks when you're traveling all the time. If I could wear new socks every day, be like magic. You know, fresh socks at the airport, you're like looking horrible. Your shirt's open, you're sweating, but you're like, I got new socks on. This is incredible. Yeah.
What else are like the most important things you're taking when you're going on tour? Or I
Alex,
don't know
my
if you
tour
ever stop.
manager, I think it's pretty important for me. Yeah, just basic stuff. Toothbrush, I have loads of toothbrushes all the time. Like, anytime you can get a dental kit at a hotel, grab one, put it in your bag. Eye mask. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, but I just coming up with some ways. I don't know how many people are touring here, but coming up with ways to make it comfortable for yourself. Whatever it may be, bringing a friend, doing whatever you can just to be like comfortable or kind of living, and easy.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, that airborne stuff are kind of what are those things called? Evanescence. Those are really good to have as much as possible. Just drop.
That?
Evanescence are like these kind of like Alka-Seltzer type tabs with like loads of vitamins and stuff. Drink one of those like every morning, like twice a day. It's got like all the nutrients and calcium and all that stuff in it. You're just like boom, 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 boom. Water. I don't drink enough water, but if I drank more water, I think I'd feel better and not be fat. So yeah, just eat well, drink a lot of water.
Vitamins.
And vitamins.
I don't really mess with vitamins so much, but those drinkable ones kind of work. I figure like if you like expose yourself to a lot of bacteria and then don't allow it to live in your body, then it kind of your immune system builds, But if you like take too many vitamins and stuff, it kind of weaken. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but.
Cool. Did you have any more questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Is anyone else?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, what's up?
All right. Just wondering if you got any plans to get back in the studio and make some more music?
Yeah, definitely, man. That's one thing as well about it's a really good question. When you have time to make music, let's say before success is really popping off, make as much music as physically possible. Because if you're touring all the time, getting in the studio and just having like the drive to want to make music, it gets lower and lower, And that's something that I don't think a lot of people really understand. And some artists are great about that. They can multitask and be on the road. Like Jamie Jones, he can be on the road, 5 days a week. Those 2 days be up in the studio. I got 2 days off. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm going to my room and eat my motherfucking Chinese food. I don't know if anyone watches Curb, but but yeah. It's about finding time to really do your craft. I spend a lot of time on buying records and looking for music, and then over the past 2-3 years, I've only done collaborations. Also because I'm always away. I don't like making music in headphones. That it's hard to kind of get studio time or like rebuild your studio. I've moved and done all these things, lost things, broken computers, and then just building a new studio again. It's been kind of hard. I've kind of recently built a studio in London, and we're going to build one this summer in Ibiza to kind of work on music. And I've got a project coming up where I'm doing a remix for Wild Nothing. I've been doing that. I'm getting back in the remix game. I did a remix of Matt Deer slowly because it's a bit easier to work with parts than to come up with new concepts. But also I took a bit of time off to kind of redevelop what I wanted to do with music, and kind of it's good to make music, but it's not good to put out music to put out music. That's something that's important. Like, just because you're making loads of stuff doesn't mean everything has to come out. Put out stuff when it's really good. And that's one thing that's kind of helped, I think, my career in many ways. I've always put out music that was good on bigger labels or that on projects that were worthwhile, rather than like, all right, I'm going to find so-and-so, like some cat on the internet wants to put out some tracks of mine, and sure, and just doing a bunch of stuff with small labels, it doesn't really have the impact, for you as an artist. It takes you in another level. If you're going to put out music, if you put out music on bigger labels, instantly you're in the same tier as the other artist on those labels. So you're looked at that tier. And one thing with music is, and being booked as an artist, there's about 5 or 6 different tiers, or levels that you go in. There's like, okay, the booking fee, the guy you can book at your local bar for like $100. And there's like the $100 to like, let's say $300 range. And then there's like 3 to 7, and then 700 to like 1,500, and then there's like the 2,000 to like 3,000, and the 3 to 5, and then 5 and up. These are kind of the tiers that things go. And then when you're in the 5 to 10s, then you're just kind of like there, and your gigs kind of range between like 3 to 30, 40 grand. It just depends on what your standing is.
Going back to the releasing music thing,
Yeah.
what if these big labels aren't calling?
If the big labels aren't calling, and you're sending stuff out, this is the thing. It's not like big. They don't have to be like majors, but like respected labels. They can be a small independent label like my own, or when I was putting or just going independent respected labels is a lot better than putting out a record on an unknown independent label, because you're still crawling your way up, still like they're even fighting to get any exposure. So you're not going to get any exposure, even if maybe a great tune, it still may not hit like it can, and being really conscious about where you put out your music, when you put out your music, how often you put out your music. Like one mistake a lot of artists have, they're like, okay, I'm going to put out a lot of music on a bunch of different labels, and it's cool because all these labels are hot right now, and it doesn't really build you as an artist. It's better to pick, let's say, a couple families, couple crews you're down with, or one crew, hopefully. Stick with them, build something, build a plan, build like a. Let's say you want to have 3 records a year. You shouldn't really put out more than 5 singles a year. That's 5 is a lot already. Like 3, 4 is a good. 4 is even kind of quarterly is all right. But I think 3 good records a year, maybe a couple remixes, being out in the press is good. But not having like loads, like people who put out like a record every couple weeks on a different label, it doesn't really help your discography much. And also the quality control isn't as high. Quality control is so important, and sitting on music until the quality is good enough, So what if people aren't calling right the next day, If you keep keeping on and you keep those relationships open with these labels and the people who work there, go out and be part of things. I mean, this is one thing that's super important, is being involved in the scene and going out, going around the world and meeting people, going out, because it's like, a couple of people in here I've seen around the world, and they're out. There's this guy in Detroit, this kid Ted Crisco. He just started this group. He's like a new Detroit kid. And one thing we've really noticed is for the past 2 years, I mean, we didn't really know Ted, so I knew him a little bit from before, but now I see him everywhere, and he's grinding, he's there, he's at every festival, he's there meeting people, he's having a good time, and everyone starts to know him, and you're like, whoa, there's that kid again. I mean, I was that kid forever. I was everywhere, and never really talking about myself, just hanging out, and people like, you meet people, and they're like, oh, what's up, it's you again. You start to talk, and things start to naturally progress and happen, and that's, I mean, a lot of things in life, it's not what you do, but it's who you know. And that's a truth in life. It's, like you can have a great degree from a great school, but if you have horrible networking skills and kind of aren't the best person to be around, chances are things aren't going to go so well for you. You can have nothing in life, but if you're good, you're out, you're meeting people constantly, and people are like remembering that, the chances are the quicker it will be that they want to ask you to do something for them. I know with our label, we don't sign anyone that we don't really know, because also at the end of the day, when you're having a label or building a family, you want the people on your label to also, they're people who are going to represent you as a label worldwide. You don't want some kid who's like screaming your label's name all over the world and being a dick. You're just like, God, because people are like, oh, that crew is kind of, they're suspect, So it's about going out, meeting people, going globally, thinking global. Thinking global is everything, Don't think local, think global, and get involved. The more you get involved, the more you meet people, the easier it is to place your music in places that are of status. I never set out a demo once in my life to a label. I had just met people around the world. Or even my DJ sets, I just met people from going out, and they're like, "Oh, you're cool. I heard you play cool music," or "Hey, send us something. I'm really interested." Because you already take that step, you're already in, rather than kind of, blind sending people stuff. Well, this is something I wanted to touch on earlier. If you're sending music out, do not send links to your SoundCloud. It's, as a label, instant no interest. Okay, it's like cool, but once you click on a song and it's not out, but it's been heard by 2,000 people or whatever, you're like, I don't want that. I have no interest in that. Even though it might be hot, you're just like, no, it's just not, it's not there. Personalize things. Make things for that label. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, start to meet the people first from those labels, build some interest with them so that you guys are talking, and then be like, hey, I'm making this for you. And even though it may not fit at that time, we've got artists that it's taken, a year, 2 years of them sending us music where we're finally like, yeah, this is right. And then they're coming to the family, and then we're like, all right, so we're going to put you on this compilation now. Then we're going to make a plan for you to have a single then. And then it's like boom, 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 boom. This is the natural progression of how a lot of labels and things work. Like truly, this is how the game works, So getting out there and just kind of being involved with those things is what's really going to push you further.
So to answer your question, he's working on some remixes.
Yeah.
now.
Thanks. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I got some new hot jams.
are you feeling a bit more pressure now that you're resident advisor -- 1 and a lot of people maybe looking at you more?
Completely. I mean, that's one reason why I kind of stopped making music in a way, because the more success you get, the more people want to judge you in one ways, but also if you make a couple wrong steps, then it's gone. That's music. People are fickle. Things are forever changing. So, I mean, you do kind of get this thing in your mind where you're like, whoa, if I mess up, then it could be over tomorrow. And that's a lot of pressure in itself, especially the higher you go. Just falling is a fear, so you're like, God, let's say if I make this single, I think it's cool, and then it gets horrible reviews, and then I do another single and it gets horrible reviews. 2 or 3 of those in a row, you're not the flavor of the week anymore. You're something that people used to know. And that's scary, and that also goes back to the whole thing of releasing too much music. You might put out a couple tracks in a row that were hot, and then you put out 3 that weren't, then it completely erases the kind of build or the pressure that you got from the couple tracks that were great, Journalists really want to report on you when you're starting, but as soon as you fuck up, they stop talking about you, and that's not what you want as an artist. You just want to, put your foot in the water of media. Your foot's always in the water. You're around, but it's not like you're not down. And that keeps you kind of in the know, or kind of people remembering you, and that's really important. I mean, to be kind of always in view, but not like, hey, it's me all the time. That it gets annoying for anyone in any scene, in any type of genre of music. You don't want to be annoying, but you want to be there.
You, last year at WMC, I don't know if you kind of knew what was going to happen, but Resident Advisor followed you around the entire week. And you basically said, yeah, no problem. Follow me around the entire week. Say whatever you want about it. Was that a conscious decision? And was it the timing right for you?
I mean, it was a crazy time. I was like that expose. It was like I was going through a really weird period in my life. My fiance at the time had just left me like a week or 2 prior. I was on this emotional breakdown of touring for too much, as well as heartbroken. And then I've got this guy trailing us around, and I'm kind of into transparency. Some artists are don't want me to know anything, and that's really your own choice. But my whole thing has been I'm a normal guy. You guys can, this is how what you see is what you get type of thing. And I also, the guy Will, who was doing the article, was telling me the kind of ideas behind the whole thing. And I think part of the reason why you guys chose me was the fact that I'm so open. So it ended up working out really well to give a true artist profile, what it's like to be in someone like myself's shoes, And it's kind of funny, since after the articles, because people were really, sometimes people can be really invasive into your life and, really grabby, people attacking me and stuff. And they kind of touched on that in the article. And after that, now people are really polite. If they want a picture or something, they're like, hey, is it cool? And you're like, yeah. But at some point at that time, it was success for me had went very fast, and it's better. I think if things go slower and you slowly make your way up, I mean, I've been in the game for a while, so it was kind of like and then it was just boom, which was it's surprising, and it's hard to adjust, I think, in many ways, and some people can adjust. I just have the personality where it's been easier for me, but at the same time, some points you can't deal with. I mean, that weekend, it's I'm trying to deal with my life, and you have to be on all the time, trying to be personable to people, and your life is basically just been destroyed in front of your face, and you've got to smile when, you know, all you want to do and go play fucking like 6 parties, but all you want to do is go sit in a corner by yourself and kind of be alone and cry, you know? And then people are asking for pictures, and you're like, smile, like, hey, yeah, great, you know? But it's just like your ex-fiance just left you the most horrible, damaging messages of your life, and you're like, wow, thanks for calling me right before I play in front of 2,000 people, you know? But it's trying to keep on your own game and staying there, you know, and being kind of aware that, you know, there's your personal life and then there's work, you know. It's life can be hard, man. The game's not easy. You guys have all signed up for something that few will attain, and it's once you attain it, it is a different life, but it is all you've worked for. I think many of you have worked your whole life to get to this position now, or to be in this room, you know, and that's special, and congratulations. You know, I couldn't make it to this room, and I tried. So, you know, it's kind of funny, but it's important to realize what you have in store and what life can be, you know, what this world can be like.
Are there any other questions, or did you even have one?
Oh, yeah,
more?
that's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Oh, it's hot in here. Warming up. In the hot seat.
Hi,
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. You mentioned playing, you know, like Ibiza and EDC and all these different things. And then as a DJ, I feel like you go from playing some after hours with your friends with like 100 people to then the next day playing for 10,000 people somewhere. Where do you stand on how you modify your set to play, like, let's say something like EDC, which is maybe 6,000 American younger kids versus then going to play at Space in Ibiza versus then going to play at, you know, Berghain or something like that?
I mean, it's kind of funny that you say that, because recently I've, at the beginning of the year, I took this conscious decision to go strictly back to vinyl. I was like, yo, I'm number one, I'm about to get real. And like this is what's up, you know, trying to like kind of almost defend myself to my friends who, you know, constantly make fun of me, which is what your friends do. Keeps you grounded, you know? So I was like, yeah, you guys want to blag me? Bam! How you like me now? I'm going to play records. And it was a great idea, but I mean, and still I'm playing records. I had to learn how to use these guys as CDJs recently because I didn't have that versatility anymore. You know, one of the biggest things, and I think as a DJ, the biggest kind of advantage you have is being able to play different music at different times for different situations, you know, and playing all music. I mean, that's something I've always prided myself on. I play so much different music, you know, whether you're playing at a restaurant, you know, really quietly playing jazz music to people eating, or you're playing at a rave to 15, 20,000 people, you know, having the music that fits and curating music that fits that situation is technically your job. You know, and a lot of DJs pigeonhole themselves and like, no matter what, they only play one style of music. And that, I mean, I don't think that really kind of works. So either way, back to your question. At the beginning of the year, I was playing, you know, I had this 2 huge record bags, you know, and I'm playing situations where sometimes those record bags, you know, the night before, I'm playing like an underground club in Amsterdam, like Trow, or something where people are there for that music, and then I get on a flight and I come over here, I go somewhere else in England, and I'm playing to younger kids who are also maybe deeper than the ADC crowd, but also young kids and want the hits, you know, and I've got all these obscure records I bought from the 90s, and kids like really started blagging me. They're like, some people really got it, but some people are like, what's this guy up here doing playing all these acid records? I want to hear some hits. Supposedly Mr. Number One isn't so good at all, you know, and the records don't work, and you got like hums and stuff. So I had to change up again and bring in the CDJs to fit those situations, you know. So it's about having using the technology that we have today to be able to have music for every situation and to fit every crowd, you know, and having that kind of intuitive kind of feeling with people to know the music to play for that time period and for that space, That's the biggest thing is, I guess, really using a mix of technologies to do what you can do best and whatever that is, whatever that is that you're doing, Playing music for the time and having the right amount of, the more you play out, the more experiences you have, the more you can judge crowds and you can judge the situations that you're in. So that helps a lot. Experiences, also going out to a lot of different parties and a lot of different events and experiencing things helps a lot with your musical taste and how you perform at different shows. But yeah, just having a lot of music on you, and don't limit yourself, because once I limited it myself, I couldn't perform in the same way that I used to be able to perform. And it was like a big challenge for me. I started getting down, and I was like doubting myself and everything. And I thought, that self-doubt, that inherent forever self-doubt, it keeps you driven out as an artist. But you're also kind of like in this place. You're like, wow, what's happening? You're trying to keep up. So yeah, have just a lot of music on hand. I know when I was using Traktor, I had over 10,000 songs on my computer, like meticulously organized in different genres of music. So I always had music for that period of time. And then you switch from like 10,000 songs to like 150 songs. It's hard to make things work. But just having a lot of different music, I think, is the best way to do things. Like I use 2 turntables and USB, and so I keep the new bombs, unreleased stuff, hands in your ear stuff, it's 10,000 people, 5,000 people, EDC crowd, some stuff that's like a bit more pop. I mean, never, one big point too is just because you're playing a bigger show, never compromise, like it can be a big hands in your ear crowd type of song for like a certain crowd, but it still should be something that you like, not something that you're just playing because the kids will like it. It's still like you can, also this goes with having a lot of taste, a wide range of taste. I'm sorry for being so long-winded on these questions. You guys are probably getting anxious as well. But having a wide range of taste. But don't ever be like, okay, I'm supposed to play this stuff to these people, because this is what they're supposed to like. So I'm going to do that. That doesn't really define you as an artist, and that's how you start to sell out. It's still about playing what you like, but playing it in the right, in the right way to the right people. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think you guys get my point.
Is there ever, sorry, this is just analogous to that, or like an add-on. Is there ever a situation, though, where like I see a lot of artists come and play, and I feel like people want to hear the kind of music that they put out on their records or whatever, and they come to the club and they play like completely, not even just like a more amped up version of that, but literally completely different like music. And is there ever a situation where it's too confusing for people? Like if you're in a bar playing like house, but you make, I don't know, like the hardest dubstep, is that not a problem?
Oh yeah, no, I've let a lot of people down and got booze and all sorts of stuff.
I guess that's the advantage of not putting out records.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
You. No one knows exactly what you sound like.
Yeah. No, that is kind of an advantage as well. But even it's kind of funny, like the records I do put out, I still don't really play. I know. So like, there's this track I did recently, this Caller Number 7, where I did this remix, and people are like, play Caller Number 7. I'm like, I don't have it. It's not, or that track you played earlier, that Party Guilt, I never played that song. Like my friends were making it in our house, and I like helped them with the bass line, and then I talked over it, and I went back in my room and took a nap, and then came out, and it did well, and people were asking for the song all the time, and I was like, I don't like the song personally, so there is like periods of time where you're there and people are expecting. That's the worst, is when people expect something from you, and then they're like, why didn't you do that or whatever, and it's like, because that's kind of not what I do. I hope you enjoyed it, but sorry. And it's like almost a lot of times. I mean, I've had times where I'm playing and it's been booked at the wrong club or something's happening, and no matter what, it just doesn't work. You're like, I got, bam, this one, ha, and it's like, nope. And you're just like, you're thinking, you're like, I got, bam, this worked last, nope. And it just doesn't work sometimes, like sometimes you're like, it's really hot, and then sometimes it's just like, man, people hate me. And that's just part of the game, don't. And if you even look at like baseball, batting 300 is like really good, So I mean, if you were like a DJ or a musician, let's say you bat 700, or 80% of the time it's really good. There's still that 20% of the time. There's still some nights it's just not good, and it's not going to work no matter what. I mean, and it beats you up, and you beat yourself up about it. I mean, that's one thing about being an artist. You're kind of never satisfied. On occasion, you're like, that was good, you know? But at the end of the day, sometimes, too, just know that it's not going to be a good night. The cards may not play together, you know? And that's part of the game. And trying to bat as high as possible or trying to do as best as you can, that's the main point. But sometimes it's just not going to be good. You're not going to make everybody happy. And that's just how it is. I mean, if you can do that, like, wow, you're going to be the best ever. But no one can do that, you know? That's just not how it works. I mean, as a DJ, maybe as a live, but even as a live, sometimes things just don't go right, and the night's just not working out, the vibe's not there, there's some type of distance, and you got to get through that time as best as you can, but it sometimes is just shit. You know? That's just how it works, and I guess.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Hi, nice meeting you.
Hey, nice to meet you as well.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
You'll be playing at Sonar Festival in Barcelona in a couple of weeks. Because you mentioned that you tour a lot. So are you in the position that you can actually stay at the festival and enjoy it and see some other artists? And
the thing with Sonar, normally I go the entire weekend. The whole week I stay. And this is the first year, I think, in maybe 4 or 5 years that I'm not going to be there the whole time, you know? I'm going to be there the Saturday night, and then the Sunday I'm going to do like a secret pop-up type thing. And but yeah, that's a really big thing. I think you're saying seeing other artists and being open to other music and going and seeing people play. That's something that a lot of people stop doing. That's really...
What was the last best DJ set you saw?
The last
from the crowd.
Best DJ set I saw. I mean, it's really great seeing Gerd and Ben the other day at our party in Detroit. I mean, that's why I brought them in. I was like, I really want to see Gerd and Ben play. It's like dope music. So that was great. I mean, other shows that I've been really excited to see.
Is there a particular Sonar moment that you can remember from years past?
I mean, well, I've only gone to the actual Sonar, sadly. Well, I shouldn't say this so much, but I've only gone to Sonar night like once or twice because I really have, this is also kind of funny, I really have problems with big crowds. So, like, if I'm in a crowd, I freak out and get really, like, panicky, which is kind of funny because I play in front of crowds all the time. But actually, if I have to be in the party, I get weird, so, which is odd.
that's a DJ thing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you go between being completely alone and then in front of tons of people. That's like a life that it becomes. But it's going back to your kind of question. I wish I had more time to stay. I'll get there early in the day, check out the festival as much as I can. I like Sonar Day quite a bit. Sonar Day is amazing. There's more experimental things, a lot of art, you know. But finding kind of people that you have concepts and that you can kind of draw from and kind of, you know, repeat and come up with ideas is truly important. Also to stay current, you know, seeing what else is in your scene. And
Bless you.
Yeah. A little bit of action here.
Yeah, for a guy who doesn't get sick, you're certainly playing your A game here. Well, you'll be around today for a little bit.
Yeah, I'll be around. If anyone wants to come up to me and ask any questions or something, feel free.
Definitely. For now, though,
I'm gonna go wash my hands so you can we can talk.
Do not shake his hands right now. But please give a hand to Seth Troxler.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.